The assembly will please come to order. The chief clerk will call the roll.
Assemblywoman McAnderson. Assemblywoman O'Thompson. Assemblywoman McBilbray Axelrod. Assemblywoman Fitzblack. Assemblywoman Brown Mainacy. Assemblywoman Fitzcarlton. Assemblywoman McCohen. Assemblywoman O'Considine. Assemblywoman McDickman. Assemblywoman Duranacy. Assemblyman Fitzellison. Assemblyman O'Flores. Assemblyman O'Fryerson. Assemblywoman McGonzalez. Assemblywoman O'Gorlo. Assemblyman Hafanesi. Assemblywoman O'Hanson. Assemblywoman McCarty. Assemblywoman McHowdigi. Assemblywoman Fitz-Kasama. Assemblywoman O'Krasner. Assemblyman O'Levitt. Assemblywoman McMartinez. Assemblywoman Fitzmarzola. Assemblyman McMatthews. Assemblyman MacArthur. Assemblywoman Brittany McMiller. Assemblyman C.H. Fitzmiller. Assemblywoman Monroe Morenesi. Assemblywoman McQuinn. Assemblyman O'Neill. Assemblyman McOrentlicker. Assemblywoman Fitzpeters. Assemblyman O'Roberts. Assemblywoman Summers McArmstrong. Assemblywoman Fitz-Thomas. Assemblywoman O'Titus. Assemblywoman O'Tolles. Assemblywoman O'Torres. Assemblyman McWatts. Assemblyman Fitzwheeler. Assemblyman O'Fryerson. Assemblywoman O'Hanson. Assemblywoman Fitz-Kasama. Speaker Pro Tem McYager.
Here. Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. May the record reflect that Assemblywoman Kasama and Assemblyman Frierson are absent excused. We have 40 members present.
The record shall so reflect. There are 40 present, 2 excused. There is a quorum. Members, NRS 236047 designates the third Wednesday in March during every legislative session as Veterans and Military Day at the Legislature. This special day of observance provides an opportunity for our veterans and members of the U.S. Armed Forces, active duty, Guard, and Reserve serving in Nevada to interact, albeit virtually this year, with Nevada's elected leaders. Veterans and Military Day at the Legislature is jointly coordinated today in partnership by the Nevada Department of Veterans Services, Nevada National Guard, and the United Veterans Legislative Council. It is my pleasure to introduce Major Todd Brown, Nevada National Guard State Chaplain. He will provide today's invocation, which will be followed by a video presentation honoring our veterans and military members. The video begins with the Pledge of Allegiance. Following the Pledge of Allegiance, members may be seated. Please join me in welcoming Chaplain Brown.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here today. I want to open up today with a simple verse that comes out of Isaiah 41:10. It says this, "Fear not, for I am with you. Do not dismay, for I am your God. I will strengthen you, I will help you, and I will uphold you with a righteous right hand." I invite you to join me in prayer. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, as the men and the women of the assembly gather today, as they discuss various things, we ask that you put your mighty hand in all that they do, that all the members of the assembly would work together and spur one another on as they work out to a solution. Let there be teamwork and understanding. Let there be cohesion and caring, not only for each other, but for our communities, our state, and our great country. Lord, we ask for your continued presence in the daily challenges that we face as individuals and as a country. Last but not least, Lord, I ask that you give all the members of the assembly an extra dose of courage as they face hard decisions and challenging situations. Shower them with your guidance and your grace. It's in Jesus' name that I pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This proclamation from Governor Sisolak honors our Vietnam veterans. Whereas 47 years ago, on March 29, 1973, the last 2,500 American troops were withdrawn from Vietnam. And whereas we focus our thoughts and prayers on the families of more than 58,000 individuals who served our country and never returned home, and we also pay tribute to the 149 Nevadans we lost in Vietnam. And whereas we pay our humble respects to those who were held as prisoner of war or listed as missing in action for their service and sacrifice on behalf of the United States. And whereas it is our duty to honor these men and women who served in Vietnam, and we owe them and their families a debt of gratitude. And whereas we also recognize the long-lasting and devastating effects of Agent Orange, which even today affect Vietnam War veterans and their families. And whereas legislation was signed in law in 2017 declaring March 29th as a National Day of Remembrance to honor Vietnam War veterans, and whereas the state of Nevada proudly honors the more than 9 million Vietnam War-era veterans who served our country in one of the longest conflicts in which the United States has been involved. And now, therefore, I, Steve Sisolak, Governor of the state of Nevada, do hereby proclaim March 29th, 2021 as Vietnam War Veterans Day in Nevada. Thank you, Governor Sisolak, and thank all of you that have served.
Army
Order of Business 2, reading and approval of the journal.
Carson City, Tuesday, March 16.
Mr. Speaker Pro Tem.
Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move to dispense with further reading of the journal and authorize the Speaker and the Chief Clerk, Speaker Pro Tem, to make necessary corrections and additions.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. Order Business 4, reports of standing committees.
Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, your Committee on Growth and Infrastructure, to which were referred Assembly Bills 1241, 53, 123, has had the similar consideration and begs to report the same back with recommendation do pass. Danielle Monroe Moreno, Chair. Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, your Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections, to which were referred Assembly Bills 95, 166, has had the similar consideration and begs to report the same back with recommendation do pass. Brittany Miller, Chair.
Order Business 7, messages from the Senate.
Senate Chamber, Carson City, March 16, 2021. To the Honorable the Assembly, I have the honor to inform your honorable body that the Senate on this day passed Senate Bill 98, Assembly Bill 110. Sherry Rodriguez, Assistant Secretary of the Senate.
Order of Business 8, motions, resolutions, and notices. Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that Assembly Bill 287 be withdrawn from the Committee on Commerce and Labor.
You've all heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move that Assembly Bill 287 be referred to your Committee on Health and Human Services.
You've all heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Assembly Joint Resolution 11, introduced by Assemblywoman Black, proposing to amend the Nevada Constitution to require that none of the above be a choice on the ballot in certain elections.
Assemblywoman Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move to refer AJR 11 to the Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Assembly Joint Resolution 12, introduced by Assemblyman Black et al., proposing to amend the Nevada Constitution to prohibit a vote on a bill or joint resolution until it has been made available to the public for a certain period.
Assemblywoman Miller.
Thank you, Speaker Pro Tem. I move to refer AJR 12 to the Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Notice of exemption, March 17, 2021, the Fiscal Analysis Division, pursuant to Joint Standing Rule 14.6, has determined the eligibility for exemption of Assembly Bills 193 to 1127H. Sarah Kaufman, Fiscal Analysis Division.
Order of Business 9, first reading and reference of bills.
Assembly Bill 311, introduced by Assemblyman Ellison, Senator Goycochea, an act relating to the City of Elko, requiring the City Council to determine whether the municipal court is presided over by an ex officio or appointed municipal judge, setting forth the manner of appointing and term of office of an appointed municipal judge, revising provisions relating to the salary of a municipal judge, setting forth a procedure for selecting and the duties of the administrative judge of the municipal court, authorizing a municipal judge to employ certain persons, revising provisions relating to the disposition of fines and forfeitures, authorizing the imposition of intermittent periods of incarceration and providing other matters properly thereto. Assembly Bill 312, introduced by Assemblyman Wheeler, an act relating to employment, creating the Independent Contractors Benefits Program, requiring the administrator of the Employment Security Division of the Department of Employment Training and Rehabilitation to administer the program, setting forth certain requirements for the operation of the program, requiring a participant in the program to pay certain contributions, providing for the payment of benefits to participants in the program who are out of work, creating the Independent Contractor Benefits Fund, and providing other matters properly thereto. Assembly Bill 313, introduced by Assemblywoman Hanson, an act relating to common interest communities, authorizing the use of electronic ballots for the election and removal of members of the Executive Board of a Unit Owners Association, and for the election of delegates or representatives to exercise the voting rights of unit owners in an association, specifying that an association is authorized to conduct a vote for the election or removal of a member of the Executive Board without a meeting, providing that a unit owners is responsible in certain circumstances for the cost of the deductible of property insurance maintained by an association, authorizing money in the operating providing account of an association to be withdrawn without the usual required signatures for the purpose of making certain automatic payments, requiring the Commission for Common Interest Communities and Condominium Hotels to adopt regulations establishing the requirements relating to the transfer of certain items upon the termination or assignment of a management agreement and providing other matters properly in thereto. Assembly Bill 314, introduced by Assemblyman Titus et al., Senator Settlemyer et al., an act relating to public health, revising provisions limiting civil liability for personal injury or death resulting from exposure to COVID-19 and providing other matters properly in thereto. Assembly Bill 315, introduced by Assemblyman O'Neill et al., an act relating to public employees, requiring the employer of a police officer or firefighter to make available certain information and counseling relating to mental health issues of the police officer or firefighter and providing other matters properly in thereto. Assembly Bill 316, introduced by Assemblyman O'Neill et al., Senators Buck et al., an act relating to veterans requiring the disclosure of certain information concerning certain events and services relating to the benefits or entitlements for veterans, creating a cause of action for certain violations of such requirements, providing a civil penalty, and providing other matters properly in thereto. Assembly Bill 317, introduced by Assemblyman Gonzalez et al., Senators Ratty et al., an act relating to housing, prohibiting discrimination in housing and certain other transactions involving real property on the basis of source of income, requiring a person who refuses to rent a dwelling to a prospective tenant to provide to the prospective tenant a written notice that states the reason for the refusal, providing a penalty, and providing other matters properly in thereto. Assembly Bill 318, introduced by Assemblywoman Marzola, an act relating to estates, revising provisions relating to certain declaratory relief, exempting certain fiduciaries from the requirement to provide a residential disclosure form in certain circumstances, revising provisions relating to electronic wills, establishing and revising various provisions governing the administration of estates, revising provisions concerning the distribution of small estates, revising provisions relating to the compensation of attorneys for personal representatives, revising the definition of the term independent attorney, revising provisions relating to the nomination of a guardian, authorizing a trustee to reimburse a settler for the payment of tax on trust income or principal, revising various provisions concerning trusts and the administration of trusts, requiring that public administrators or similar persons be given certain information relating to a decedent and access to the safe deposit box of a decedent in certain circumstances, authorizing certain entities to charge a reasonable fee for providing certain information to public administrators or similar persons, and providing other matters properly in thereto. Assembly Bill 319, introduced by Assemblyman Roberts, an act relating to education, requiring the College of Southern Nevada to establish a pilot program to enhance opportunities for pupils to enroll in dual credit courses and providing other matters properly in thereto. Assembly Bill 320, introduced by Assemblyman Levitt, Senator Hardy, an act relating to off-highway vehicles, revising provision governing the operation of certain large all-terrain vehicles on certain streets and highways and providing other matters properly in thereto. Assembly Bill 321, introduced by Assemblyman Frierson and Benitez Thompson, an act relating to elections, establishing procedures for the use of mail ballots in every election, establishing various requirements relating to mail ballots, revising the requirements for signature verification of mail ballots, revising the deadline to submit a request for the establishment of a polling place within an Indian reservation or Indian colony for an election, revising the personal data that may be requested if a voter's signature is challenged at the polls, requiring the Secretary of State to enter into a cooperative agreement with the State Register of Vital Statistics to obtain certain information relating to the statewide voter registration list, authorizing a county clerk, city clerk, or registrar of voters, and certain deputies thereof charged with powers and duties relating to elections to request certain personal information be maintained in a confidential manner, repealing provisions relating to absent ballots, mailing ballots, and affected elections, and providing other matters properly in thereto. Assembly Bill 322, introduced by Assemblyman C.H. Miller et al., Senator Harris, an act relating to cannabis, providing for licensure and regulation by the Cannabis Compliance Board of certain events at which the sale and consumption of cannabis or cannabis products is allowed, setting forth certain requirements for the issuance of a license to hold such an event, setting forth certain requirements concerning the operation of such an event, imposing various requirements on persons licensed by the board to hold such an event, providing that persons who hold certain events at which cannabis or cannabis products are displayed for informational or educational purposes are not required to obtain a license, requiring the board to adopt regulations establishing certain fees, revising provisions relating to the consumption of cannabis in a public place, revising provisions relating to the excise tax on retail sales of cannabis and cannabis products, exempting the holders of certain licenses issued by the board from certain provisions prohibiting a person from maintaining a place for the purpose of unlawfully selling, giving away, or using any controlled substance, and providing other matters properly in thereto. Assembly Bill 323, introduced by Assemblyman Levitt, Senator Hardy, an act relating to internet privacy, prohibiting a data broker from making any sale of certain information collected about a consumer in the state if so directed by the consumer, revising provisions relating to the sale of certain information collected about a consumer in the state, revising the circumstances under which operators of certain internet websites or online services are authorized to remedy a failure to comply with certain requirements relating to the collection and sale of certain information about consumers in the state, revising provisions relating to the enforcement of requirements concerning to the sale of certain information about a consumer, and providing other matters properly laid thereto. Assembly Bill 324, introduced by Assemblywoman Dickman, an act relating to digital assets, classifying digital assets for the purposes of the treatment of such assets under the Uniform Commercial Code, authorizing a bank to provide certain custodial services for digital assets, setting forth certain requirements for the provision of such custodial services, exempting an operator of a peer-to-peer digital currency platform from certain provisions governing persons engaged in the business of transmitting money, revising the definition of virtual currency for the purposes of provisions exempting virtual currencies from taxation, and providing other matters properly in thereto. Assembly Bill 325, introduced by Assemblyman Kasama et al., Senators Bucks et al., an act relating to records, authorizing the submission of a certified paper copy of an electronic document to certain county recorders, prescribing a certificate sufficient for certifying that a paper copy is a true and correct copy of an electronic document, and providing other matters properly laid thereto. Assembly Bill 326, introduced by Assemblyman Roberts, an act relating to cannabis, authorizing the Cannabis Compliance Board to impose certain penalties for engaging in the business of a cannabis establishment without a license, requiring advertising by a cannabis establishment to include the name and license number or other unique identifier of the cannabis establishment, and providing other matters properly laid thereto. Assembly Bill 327, introduced by Assemblyman Torres et al., Senator Donyade, an act relating to mental health, requiring certain mental health professionals to complete continuing education concerning cultural competency and diversity, equity, and inclusion, and providing other matters properly laid thereto. Assembly Bill 328, introduced by Assemblyman Hardy et al., Senators Hanson et al., an act relating to elections, authorizing a funeral director to notify the county clerk of the death of a person, requiring a county clerk to cancel the pre-registration or registration to vote of a person when notified by a funeral director that the person has died, and providing other matters properly laid thereto. Assembly Bill 329, introduced by Assemblywoman Hardy, an act relating to education, authorizing a pupil to enroll in a program of full-time distance education offered by a school district in which the pupil does not reside, revising provisions relating to local educational agencies, revising provisions relating to prohibited activities by the executive director of the State Public Charter School Authority, prohibiting the limitation of enrollment of pupils at certain charter schools, revising various provisions relating to charter schools for distance education, and providing other matters properly laid thereto. Assembly Bill 330, introduced by Assemblyman Ellison, an act relating to professions, providing for equivalent credit towards requirements for professional and occupational licenses and certifications for certain occupational, vocational, and technical training, and providing other matters properly laid thereto. Assembly Bill 331, introduced by Assemblyman Marzola et al., Senator Donyade et al., an act relating to land use planning, authorizing under certain circumstances the governing body of a city or county to accept a payment in lieu of the performance of certain obligations or impose a linkage fee on certain developers to pay for the development of affordable housing, revising the list of specified measures that certain cities and counties must choose from in implementing a plan for maintaining and developing affordable housing, requiring the administrator of Housing Division of the Department of Business and Industry to adopt regulations establishing certain criteria for the distribution and use of money from the account for affordable housing, and providing other matters properly in there too. Assembly Bill 332, introduced by Assemblywoman Peters, an act relating to property, requiring the Housing Division of the Department of Business and Industry to establish a statewide registry of landlords, requiring the landlords to report to the division the information required to be contained in the statewide registry, prohibiting a property manager from providing services to a landlord who is not listed in the statewide registry, and providing other matters properly in there too. Assembly Bill 98, introduced by Senator Settlemeyer et al., Assemblyman Wheeler, an act relating to water, revising the boundaries of the Carson Water Subserviency District and the membership of the Board of Directors and of the district, requiring under certain circumstances the Board of County Commissioners of Story County to pay to the district a certain amount from the county's general fund, and providing other matters properly laid there too.
Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. I move that Assembly Bill 311 through Assembly Bill 330 and Senate Bill 98 be referred to the committees as shown on Assembly Bill introductions dated March 17, 2021, of which all members have a copy of on their desk.
Assemblywoman, just wanted to make sure that motion was for Assembly Bill 311 through Assembly Bill 332, as well as Senate Bill 98?
Correct.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. You've heard the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed, nay? Motion carries. We'll go to Order of Business 12, General File and Third Reading.
Assembly Bill 101, introduced by Assemblyman Yeager, an act relating to veterinary medicine authorizing a licensed veterinarian to administer to an animal a product containing hemp or CBD, which contains not more than 0.3% THC, or recommend to the owner of an animal the use of such a product to treat a condition of the animal, prohibiting the Nevada State Board of Veterinary Medical Examiners from taking disciplinary action against a licensed veterinarian or the facility in which a licensed veterinarian engages in the practice of veterinary medicine on the basis of the administration or recommendation of such a product, and providing the matters properly named thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 or the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks? Assemblywoman Dickman?
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Assembly Bill 101 authorizes a licensed veterinarian to administer to an animal certain products containing hemp or CBD. The veterinarian may also recommend to the owner of an animal the use of such products to treat a condition of the animal. The Nevada State Board of Veterinary Medical Examiners is prohibited currently from will be with this bill from taking disciplinary action against a veterinarian or the facility in which the veterinarian engages in the practice of veterinary medicine for administering or recommending the use of such products. This bill is effective on October 1st, 2021. And I'd just like to say this bill is so important to me because of a beloved Yorkie I had who would have benefited greatly and suffered a lot less during her final days if her veterinarians would have been able to prescribe and properly dose this treatment. But they weren't even allowed to advise me. So I really want to thank my colleague from Assembly District 9 and the Speaker Pro Tem for permitting me to speak on behalf of this bill, and I hope you will all join me in support. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Any further remarks on Assembly Bill 101? Seeing none, the Chief Clerk will open the roll. Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 40 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent excused. The bill having received a constitutional majority, I declare it passed and ordered to the Senate.
Assembly Bill 173, introduced by Assemblywoman Hadegay, an act relating to professional regulation, revising provisions relating to the exemption from licensure of a professional engineer for employees of certain public utility companies, revising provisions relating to eligibility to take certain required examinations for licensure as a professional land surveyor, and providing other matters properly named thereto. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1, Section 5, end of Section 5, end of bill.
Are there any amendments to Section 1 or the bill as a whole?
There are none.
Remarks? Assemblywoman Hadegay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Temp. Assembly Bill 173 removes the exemption from licensure as a professional engineer for an employee of a natural gas utility who is engaged in a type of work for the utility that the Public Utilities Commission of Nevada by regulation has determined requires a license. The measure also eliminates the requirement that an applicant for a license as a professional land surveyor complete the required years of active experience in land surveying before being eligible to take the principles and practices of land surveying examination. Thank you.
Are there any further remarks? Seeing none, the Chief Clerk will open the roll. Anyone wishing to change their vote? There are 40 ayes, 0 nays. The bill having received a constitutional majority, I declare it passed and ordered to the Senate. We'll go to Order of Business 15. Assemblywoman Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Order of Business 15.
Order of Business 15.
I rise in recognition of Veterans and Military Day here in the Nevada Legislature. Today, we honor veterans and those who are currently serving for their courage and selflessness. Veterans and military families make up over 10% of our state population, even though only 1% will ever serve nationally, and reflect Nevadans of every color, race, religion, and culture. Just like every other group that adds to the richness of our beautiful Nevada diversity, we are proud to have such large representation of veterans in our state and strive to be the premier state for veterans and military families in the U.S. Veterans are our friends, our neighbors, our loved ones, and even our colleagues in this very chamber. And to those, we thank you for your service. In conjunction with Women's History Month, I would like to give a special thanks to all the women who have served or are serving in our armed forces. You truly are the most selfless of all warriors. And also acknowledge our 2 recently appointed generals, female generals. Most of you know that my father was a Vietnam veteran, and I am so proud of his service to this country. Though he is no longer with us, I honor his memory by continuing to support the needs of our veterans in Nevada. For it was him who instilled this obligation of service and duty within me. For it was him who demonstrated the patriotism when fighting for a country while still fighting for his own civil rights back at home. There wasn't much I could do when I lost my father to PTSD at 13 years old, but there is much I can do now. To all the veterans and their families, the sacrifices you have made for this country do not go unrecognized, including the sacrifices of family members. Know that you are heard and represented in this legislature. For the people who choose to fight for us daily, we must choose to fight for them through legislation that expands support for veterans. And this isn't just mental health services. We need to listen to veterans because they are the experts on their needs and they have the solutions. Our role is to support and empower them so they may continue to live a life of honor here in the civilian world. Let us do our part and protect the people who protect us and honor them through our work and service here in the Nevada State Legislature.
Assemblywoman Hanson.
You would think I was a freshman. Thank you. I'm a freshman sophomore. Thank you, Speaker Pro Tem. I rise today to pay tribute and give thanks for our veterans and our military. As a Blue Star mom of a Navy SEAL, of a daughter-in-law who's a First Lieutenant Marine in honor of Women's History Month, and a son-in-law who's a major in the Air Force, I, as a mother, am grateful for the children that serve in the military. I'm going to try not to get choked up. It wasn't until I experienced being a mother of a military member that I fully grasped what so many other mothers before me have been through, and fathers, and that my prayer is daily that I not join the ranks of Gold Star parents. It was a little over a year ago, on January 7th, 2020, that Al-Assad base was attacked in Iraq with 13 ballistic missiles that my son resided at, and so many other of our military. But I was fortunate to get the best text of my entire life about 6 hours later, letting me know that he was okay. And I know that many parents don't get that text. So today I stand to pay tribute to the brave and wonderful men and women in the military, to our wonderful veterans that serve here in our chamber, with immense gratitude in my heart for all that you have done, for all that you have served, so that we can sit here today in this free country and be able to do what we do. So please help me thank our veterans, our military families, and those Blue Star and Gold Star families that have given so much. Thank you.
Assemblyman O'Neill.
Thank you, Speaker Pro Tem. First, I asked if I may wear my fedora for this presentation.
You may, Assemblyman.
Thank you. It just wouldn't be the same. I would like to briefly share how St. Patrick's Day celebration came about as we know it today in the United States. The man who we know as St. Patrick, Apostle of Ireland, was born in Britain around 386 AD. At a young age, Patrick was captured by pirates who took him to Ireland. During his captive years, Patrick became deeply devoted to Christianity. He escaped captivity, but returned to Ireland to convert its people. And we all know they may need it, may I say. By the time of his death on March 17th, 461 AD, Patrick had established churches, monasteries, and schools in Ireland. One of the many legends of St. Patrick is that he used the shamrock to explain the Holy Trinity. Ireland eventually celebrated March 17th with religious services and feasts in honor of St. Patrick. Immigrants from Ireland transformed St. Patrick's Day into a holiday, a revelry and celebration of all things Irish. Since 1737, cities in the United States with large Irish immigrants have staged extensive celebrations and parties. What started as a feast day for the beloved patron saint of Ireland has become a largely secular celebration embraced by millions of Americans. While the coronavirus pandemic has kept us from properly celebrating St. Patrick's Day in Nevada, we recognize the significant contributions of the people of Irish descent in this state. Many Irish immigrants in early Nevada were miners, and it's only fitting that they helped discover the largest pot of silver ever known, the Comstock lode. I think it's also rather interesting and coincidental that we are celebrating St. Patrick's Day and Veterans Day at the same time this year. Both are known or have been called upon to raise their arm, one to protect us at times and the other to celebrate a pint with us. On this very special feast day, I ask fellow assembly members to join in celebrating St. Patrick's Day with the following toast. When the blarney is done for the day, we exit the building to play. Take your pint from the shelf and toast the green elf. Give cheer for this lucky green day. Thank you, Speaker Pro Tem.
Assemblywoman Gonzalez.
Thank you, Speaker Pro Tem. Order of Business 15.
Order Business 15.
I am heartbroken to hear of the news of yet another act of extremism and hatred in our country. As a multiracial Thai Latino woman, it is with a heavy heart I rise in support of my Asian brothers and sisters across the country as we continue to experience escalating rates of violence driven in part by fear-mongering and racism. I will continue to be a voice for all of our communities targeted by extremists, including my AAPI community, as long as our community continues to experience bigotry. My heart is with my community today and every day.
Assemblywoman Anderson.
Good morning. Order of Business 15, Speaker Pro Tem.
Order Business 15.
Thank you. Today, I also rise in celebration, as mentioned earlier by my fellow Irishman from District 40. I could go into the whole history of St. Patrick getting rid of the saints, which, by the way, he did not. But more importantly, today is observed as a point of pride for many of us. As a granddaughter of an Irish immigrant, it is my honor to be able to just highlight just a few days. Oh my gosh, okay. Well, this day is traditionally associated with luck, leprechauns, the color green, and family. It really is just an excuse to celebrate the personality traits of the Irish, of which so many of us share, whether we are from Ireland or from the API community. We all have that great personal charm. We all have a bit of a temper, just admit it. We also have that wee bit of stubbornness that comes out, especially about 11:30, right before deadlines. We have egos which might rival the size of our state, as well as our homeland. We have a quick wit, an understanding the importance of the need for balance when it comes to laughter as well as tears. But probably the most significant trait of all of us in this chamber and all of us that share the Irish blood are kindness, warmth, and a belief in others, especially that shine through when times are adverse. In closing tonight, we already have one toast ready, so I guess you'll have to do two. So when you have your drink with dinner, whether it's water, a Sprite, or another libation of your choice, I ask for you all to raise a glass in celebration of our veterans, our families, but also in the spirit of Shlanta. May love and laughter light your days and warm your heart and home. May good and faithful friends be yours wherever you may roam. May peace and plenty bless your world with joy that long endures. May life's passing seasons bring the best to you and yours. Thank you. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Assemblywoman Black.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Dr. Jay Bhattacharya of Stanford University recently said COVID-19 lockdowns are, quote, sorry, I'm foggy, the single worst public health mistake in the last 100 years. An op-ed by Philip Lemoyne in the Wall Street Journal last week argued that, quote, lockdowns can destroy the economy, but it's starting to look as if they also have minimal effect on the spread of COVID-19. An editorial in Sunday's Las Vegas Review-Journal concludes that, quote, at this point, the long-term lockdown experiment appears to have been an expansive failure. And the Associated Press reported last week that, quote, California and Florida have experienced almost identical outcomes in COVID-19 cases, despite the fact that California imposed strict lockdown rules and Florida did not. Lockdowns clearly do not work, which is why I again urge my colleagues to stop locking Nevadans out of the state legislature. It's their building, not ours, and it's time to let the people back into the people's house. Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. Any other order of business 15? Seeing no additional order of business 15, we'll go to Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. So one thing I wanted to do under Order Business 2, but it really falls under Order Business 15, was to make sure that we acknowledge our members who are here and serving, who are also veterans, including even one of our own Sergeant of Arms. So if you could please rise so we can acknowledge you, I'd appreciate it. Thank you all doubly twice for your service here, abroad, and in Carson City during this time. You'll also notice that you do have members on your tables, a letter from Director Kat Miller, a letter, and then also reports. We typically have her on the floor during this day. We typically have lots of pomp and circumstance that we're able to celebrate on special days and special moments where we can recognize days like today. And so our chief clerk staff have put together a little blast from the past to remind us what this kind of in different ways that we've been able to celebrate. Just a couple of fun pictures there. Thank you so much to our chief clerk and our chief clerk staff as well for putting together under Order Business 1 the pledge and the military songs and putting that all together. I I know that it feels nice when we can still incorporate that into some of our floor procedures, and I appreciate it greatly. Seeing no other business before us, okay, I would move that the assembly adjourn until Thursday, March 18th at the hour, or 2021 at the hour of 11:30 a.m.
Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson has moved that the assembly stand adjourned until Thursday, March 18th, 2021 at the hour of 11:30 a.m. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are adjourned.